Hey everybody, welcome to the Rochester Real Estate Show podcast. Jason Mancuso here of the Anthony Butera team. Joined today, first comer on the podcast, right?
Yep, first time.
Agent Liam Smith. He's a member of our team, been so for 2 years.
Yep.
2+, right?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
over.
Yep. We're going to talk today about some numbers, some analytics around the financial side of investment properties. I think also we can kind of carry it over to just general home ownership side too, right?
Yeah.
Liam's got a background. He studied finance in college. Young gun, so he's fresh off that. I got a finance degree too, but you held a gun to my head right now and told me to do some entry level or calculus 101 or whatever, I would.
Yeah, I'm right around the same boat, though.
I'd be dead.
Yeah.
But just a general understanding of how numbers work. What to look for in terms of numbers. Real estate related. Specific to investment properties, but also just in general. So, I think this is a constant topic on our show in terms of investment properties because of what the Rochester market offers, which, the attraction is low entry prices is what's probably the starting point for most in terms of, I've always said we deal with people from every corner of the globe that are attracted to this market because of the cost and then also the returns that are offered from it. So, my perspective is we're used to the price points here, just being from here locally, in this region in general too. But you get people downstate, New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, bigger cities, and then internationally, Asian markets, Israel, Europe. There's just a lot of attraction to the Rochester, New York market because, where are you going for $100,000 in any other market?
Yeah, especially where the rents are in that price point, too. And
Right.
For how low the taxes are, it shows with the cash and cash return and cap rate.
Yeah.
So it's super appealing. And then you have to, dig deeper into that and find out, the structure, when it was built, the age of the roof, and, try to get as much history as you can on the property.
So you mentioned two things there: cap rate, cash on cash return. Give me your definition of that. Define that.
Yeah, so I guess the best definition you can give really is when you're looking at investment properties and you're looking at, take an example of $100,000 house, and they're, projecting they're having $750 for a duplex, both sides. Your cash and cash return is basically, what you're going to be getting for your gross income. You're going to be looking at around probably 7-8%.
Well, so I think the key to it is the cash applied to whatever cash you're bringing to the table, right? So cash on cash and then cap rate are going to be two different things. And the cap rate would be more so like that without financing. The cash on cash is typically used for financing involved, right? Meaning if you're bringing a down payment of 20% on $100,000, without closing costs included, but just that you're going to measure your cash on cash off that $20,000, that
Right.
20%, right? And then what's the income, what's the expenses off of that, and measuring your investment based on I'm into the game with 20% on 100, it's more than that, with the closing costs, but that's how I'm measuring it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In this market, there's just big returns. Double digit, sometimes above 20%, depending on what the asset class is and how things are playing out. So again, other markets nationally and globally, when you tell somebody you can get a solid, 12, 15 cap rate, which we'll talk about, and then, going off, your cash on cash return in theory is going to be higher than your cap rate because that's just based on your skin in the game if you're financing.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, and it's just, talk to me about this. measure real estate investing and the opportunities within it compared to just, everything else out there in the world, right? Like go down the line real quick in terms of like, okay, what's the stock market offer? What do you get with bonds, stuff like that, right? And then I think we can get to like, oh, here's why this is attractive to take on some more risk to get there.
Yeah, so I mean, when I would say like, in terms of like leveraging, real estate investing, and especially in this time when vacancy is slim to none,
Right.
there's a lot of people that are, renting right now due to the single family housing market.
Yep.
So, it's more of like a safety buffer because, your vacancy is super low and you're collecting rent basically right off the bat, especially if they're already in their lease. And another, thing that a lot of investors look at and seem to be swinging more towards is investment properties that are totally vacant, because then they can set their own, price point for the rents.
Sure.
And not, step on the toes of current renters or depending on how long they've been there. And
Do
stuff
what
like
you
that.
want, not to have to inherit the situation.
Yeah.
As an aside, I tell investors for this market, like if you're analyzing current rents and current situations, that can be dangerous because, there's a transition that takes place for a tenant too when a home is sold, right? Depending on the asset class, I guess, but like a lot of times, you may not have that same good situation that's applicable when when the house is marketed to after closing, right? Meaning like, I just come right out and tell investors, like, look, you need to analyze this from the following perspective. If the deal does not make sense, in that if you assume that the day after closing, the tenant stops paying or just gets up and leaves, or worst case scenario, gets up and leaves and trashes the place to where you got to turn it over, then the deal doesn't make sense. Because the reality is, especially with that example and there's damage to the property and you got to reinvest into it, you can't assume that you're buying something and the current tenant's going to stay in there forever, right? And when they do leave, whether it's immediately after you close or, a few months later or whatever, a few years later, like you assume you're going to have deferred maintenance to reinvest into the property, but, assume that you're going to have to spend the money in the short term on renting the place out again. And that means like fresh paint, new carpet, flooring, stuff like that, getting it ready for a new renter.
Yeah.
And if the deal doesn't make sense, then you're at a high risk because now you're just saying like, all right, everything's got to stay remaining good, right? Then after you inherit the situation and close on the property. And that's, I don't know, that's foolish to me to think like that. So somewhere in between, I may be on the other end of the extreme to say like you got to analyze it this way. And if it doesn't make sense for you, then, bail on it. But somewhere in between like the extreme way of like just assume the worst and hoping for the best, right?
Yeah.
Is probably the happy medium. But talk to me, and then sorry to put you on the spot and quiz you here, but pop quiz back to college days, I guess. Talk to me about like, what the rate of return is going to be on different investments, like outside of real estate. So
Rate of return in terms of
so like what's
like
the
your
stock
rental income or
no, like
or
what's the stock
appreciation?
market offer? What do bonds offer? What's commonly 401k. Somebody's 401k, right?
Yeah. It all depends really.
Right.
It all depends on like the person's age and risk tolerance
Sure,
really
sure,
when
sure.
you're looking at like investments. And you're probably like looking around like a 3 to 5%
Right.
return, which is, good. It's stable.
Yeah.
Especially when it compounds over time. It's,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer. And then, when you compound all that into the investing side of it and then invest into real estate to diversity your stream of income, you have the same conversation essentially with people.
Right.
Some people have super low risk and they're just willing to get into something that's, $100,000 or less.
Yeah.
It's a higher cap rate, higher cash and cash return, and they're willing to do,
Yeah.
whatever it takes to get things done.
So you're I guess somebody like financially savvy or whatever you want to call it. Somebody who's saving for retirement, right? You have the typical vehicles of like, your 401k if it's offered through your employer and you're contributing to it. if you're investing in the stock market individually, great, but otherwise, most people have like some sort of money market account type of thing, or an IRA, or whatever have you around there. There's life insurance, right? Just different investment vehicles to choose. And I think the point we're getting at here is not necessarily saying put all your eggs into the real estate basket, right? But it can be a valuable aspect of your financial game plan to invest in that should, if done the right way, give you a much higher rate of return than something that's piddly at low single digits, 3 to 5%, right?
Yep.
Or when the market's strong and you're looking at, an ETF or whatever it is, getting you, 7, 8, sometimes 9, 10%, right? The Rochester market as a whole catches people's attention because they're like, well, what do you mean I can get double-digit returns? And, I'm taking the money that I would otherwise dump into my IRA or stock market or whatever and put that into real estate, which, has risk because it's, depending on your definition of passive or active, right? Like, I guess it could be passive if you're an out-of-town landlord in that you just hire a property manager, but active in that
You're tangibly working on the property.
Something needs to be done to the property,
Yeah.
right? You got to pay for it.
Yeah.
If the money's not in the property manager's account from the rents that are coming in, well, you're putting money back into it.
Right.
But, you would assume that you're making wise real estate investments. Tough to time the market, but just generally speaking, real estate's kind of tried and true in terms of, over time, if you get through, like let's just use the example, say you bought a property in 2005 and still have it. Well, you bought it here, and then it tanked 2008,
Right.
and now it's up here, which was higher than over here.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, there's always gains to be made. All right, cap rate. So here's my, let's use that example, right? $750 a month times 2 units, $1,500 a month times 12 months, $18,000. So that's $18,000 of the income coming in from the rents. What are some of the expenses on a rental property?
Yeah, I mean, you have your insurance,
Okay.
you have your maintenance.
So insurance, I'm gonna say, whatever. I'll be conservative. Say like $800 a year, okay, for insurance.
And then maintenance, whether or not you want to do it or if you choose to do it, but we always include it in our
To budget for it, right?
Yeah.
So to me, like I use 10% of rents for maintenance, just because, and in this example, $18,000 a year of income, 10% of that is $1,800. That may seem like a lot, but I think that's also practical because if your furnace breaks and you have 2 furnaces in the house and you have to replace it, a furnace, $3,000.
Yeah.
So you're not even covering that.
Right.
So 1,800, like if nothing else, can be like a reserve type thing, right? All right. So last 1,800.
And then we can throw vacancy in there.
Okay. I was just looking at my model the other day in terms of using a 10% vacancy at this point. It's just, not going to happen. However, here's how I think about it. The vacancy rate right now and locally is like low single digits, like 2-3%. 5, like if your property manager's vacancy rate is 5%, like that's not great.
Right.
Okay. Across the board if they're managing hundreds of units. But here's how I think of vacancy is if you have, say a tenant gets evicted or a tenant leaves, they leave on the 31st. It's not like you want to rent that apartment and you're moving in on the 1st.
Right.
And as a landlord, that you're just able to turn it over that quickly. So you're probably going to have at least a month of vacancy, and and that just depends on how efficient you are with the management or how efficient your manager is to turn it over, and how quick can they get work done, and how quick can you place a tenant. A month, frankly, a minimum, the way I think about it.
Yeah.
But it's not uncommon and that it would spill into 2 months of vacancy.
Yeah, depending on how active the owner is and everything like that.
And now you have 10 out of 12 months.
Yeah.
Can't think of the math, but you're pretty close to 10%, right?
Right.
So, I'll just budget for vacancy. I mean, in this case, we'll do, I don't know, let's just use like a $500 buffer,
All right.
right? What else?
Like
Insurance.
utilities.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I would recommend looking at investments that have separate utilities if it's multi-unit.
Right.
And then from there, like you can put the tenants on their own, here locally is Rochester Gas and Electric, where they pay their heat and electric. I just don't like the concept of being a landlord and paying for utilities. The reality is you have a high risk of just like, you're paying for the heat, and in the wintertime, get a nice cool breeze to offset the heat being set at 90 in the apartment.
Right.
And, kind of the best of both worlds that the tenants live in.
Yeah.
And that can add up.
Then you get nailed with a huge bill.
Right.
And you're like, oh boy,
Yeah, not fun.
shouldn't have rolled that up.
But to me, in the utility category, like, so locally here in Rochester, there's landlords that'll pass it through, but the water bill remains in your name as a landlord. You don't put the water in the tenant's name.
Mm-hmm.
Reason is, as a quick aside, is that if the tenant, in that case, doesn't pay the bill, the water is a lienable utility, meaning that you can actually get foreclosed on for not paying your water bill. RG&E, gas and electric, you don't pay the bill, they'll eventually come and shut it off.
Right.
Right? But water, like, they'll just keep supplying you water.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you got a tenant for 5 years, right, and they don't pay the water bill once,
Yeah. Not
you
good.
may find out when it's too late that you're getting foreclosed on.
Right.
Now, generally speaking, I usually budget for like $30 a month for water per unit. Realistic but conservative, I think.
Yeah. Rather be conservative.
Yeah. So I think the other thing is, and this is where you can get away with, structuring something with tenants or a situation where you don't have to do this, but, snow removal in our market and then lawn maintenance.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know, let's just use $50 a month for, utility category. So that's $600. So less 600. So we've done maintenance, vacancy, insurance, utilities. Let's leave management out. Assume you're local and investing, or managing it yourself.
Okay.
Because I can easily, management going rate is about 10%.
Mm-hmm.
10% of rents. Okay. Property taxes. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, for the most part in Rochester, they're super low.
Well,
so,
based on the price
depending
point.
on, I was about to
Right?
say, yeah.
Yeah,
Not
based on the price point.
$300,000, $200 to.
Yeah. So I mean, I think if we were this example, we were saying $100,000 property.
Right.
I'm just gonna use. It's probably low, but I'm gonna use $3,000.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it may not that it's low, but it may be. It may be assessed lower, and you run the risk of getting reassessed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So without management, that $18,000 that you collected is now $11,300.
Right.
Okay. So a cap rate is based off that number, based off the purchase price. Now, this is where different schools of thoughts, right? Because I just had a conversation with somebody recently who said, well, cap rate's really like, less heavy on the expense analytics and more on like actual market value of the property. I get it.
Yeah.
I think, how do you
You
want
could
to
see it.
define it?
I mean, you could see it both ways.
Sure.
It's kind of like when you look at a cap rate, you just explain how we got, to that number, and then
Yeah.
kind of like, give it to your buyer for them to generate questions and then kind of go off from there. So everyone has like a kind of different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like the way that I kind of look at it the most is like security, just based point off the market value. And another thing is like the taxes. And like you said, like the higher you go up, say it's like a $300,000 house and it's assessed at, it's comfortable like $11,000, nine to $11,000. You know, and your purchase price is X. You know, your cap rate's going to be a lot lower.
Here's what I just heard is like, let's, however you want to define it, but essentially establish like these metrics, so to speak, right? That are going to determine whether or not an investment is good for you.
Right.
I talk to investors all the time, and the question I ask is like, what's your criteria? What's your rate? What's the minimum rate of return? Like, what's going to make sense for you to invest your hard-earned money in this market? Because otherwise, you can just put it in something safe and get 3 to 5%.
Right.
Now, not to go off on a tangent, but right now on that 5% investment, you're losing 3.5% based on inflation. But that's another topic for another day, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, that 11,300 that you netted is off the 100,000 investment is 11.3%. And I think that's where the sticker shock of the rate of return comes into play for why this market's attractive. Because other people, you know, other real estate investors in other bigger markets where you have, you know, the price points are a lot more,
Yeah.
you know, to single digits.
Yeah, and you're mostly like buying a property like that for, you know, appreciation value, like to hold it and tax purposes and stuff like that, and then you know, to sell it in another 5 to 10 years for more than what you bought it for, hopefully.
Right. Now, so that's, you know, whether you want to call it a rate of return or a cap rate, you know, whatever. Not here to debate it, right?
Right.
But back to the cash on cash return. So we can essentially take that same 11.3 and let's just say you finance that $100,000 house. You know, your mortgage payment's going to be, I don't know, what, $600?
Yeah, right around there.
Right. So easy math sake, I'm just going to say 500. So that's $6,000 a year. Right. So now I'm going to take $6,000 off. Now you just made 5,300. But what's 5,300 in terms of a rate of return off of 20% down on 100? Right.
Yeah.
And let's just add in 5,000 for closing. So off the 25,000. 21.2%. And that's where people's minds get blown by this market to say, yeah, I'll take 20% return on my money. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Now, I think the example that we just laid out there, that scenario of those expenses are kind of like a perfect world. Right? Because we just assume like you just have, you know, I mean, for maintenance, for example, $1,800 a year. I mean, it just depends on how you do it, right? For me, like, I can't do much myself, so if I have to replace a toilet, that's probably going to cost me, I don't know, $400.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I said, a furnace is going to be, you're over that.
Right.
So that's kind of a well and good scenario. But point being is, you know, real estate's like always a primary generator of wealth. Long term, right? And just the line of whatever it is, all the billionaires in the world have real estate, a lot of it in their portfolio, and a lot of billionaires are made off of real estate.
For sure.
So it's you know, if nothing else, it's a good, you know, finance 101 type of thing. Diversify your investment portfolio, and you know, if you have a tolerance for risks, then you can go big with it potentially.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I'd probably say like 20% of the people that, at least that I work with, do. And, you know, they buy multiple properties at a time or either looking for a package deal. And, you know, they're in position to where they can quit their job and then just focus on like the business of investing in real estate.
Yeah.
So I've seen it in the two and a half years that I've been doing this, and it's like pretty eye-opening stuff. And it's like always, like they say, it's like the hardest part. I'm like, what's the hardest part about starting?
Right.
And they're like, the hardest part about starting is starting. And they're like, you need to start with one property because everyone is a different situation and learning lesson from their first property. that's going to be different from yours to mine to everyone else that does it. So
That's why I love giving that advice for newcomers to the market here, whether they're local or out of town, in terms of like, don't give me your $1 million budget and say you want to buy 10 properties with it, right? Like,
Right.
let's get your feet wet. Make sure that one property is going to be what it, what you're thinking it's cracked up to be. And then from there, scale it. I think that's, it's a good aspect for any business, right? I mean, if you, don't get me wrong, if you got the balls, so to speak, to just go all in on something, then you better be committed and you better be very analytical to make sure that it really, for the most part, can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And buffer in the stuff that will go wrong and make sure that the return still makes sense. For this type of game, being a landlord's a different animal.
Yeah, no
Right?
doubt. I mean, it is a business.
Yeah.
So
you got to make sure that business kind of suits, what you want and, in life and how you're managing that and also that the returns are going to be there. So that's the one thing. We just boiled down the market pretty good here locally. But there's a lot of research that can be done that just shows how the numbers play out without this detailed of an approach. And, that 11% example that I laid out can sometimes not necessarily be advertised, but like people can do their research and not know everything there is to know or make the proper assumptions and be thinking that 11% is going to be like 20%, again, because they may be looking at a $50,000 property that just shows a huge return on paper, but doesn't reflect the proper expenses.
right.
And then they get into it and they're only making 10 and they're not happy with it. Even though 10 still, you're outpacing inflation in this case currently and just all the other investment categories for the most part, aside from owning another business, right?
Yeah. And just to go back to your point about, when you bring up about the, people that will look, especially like a lot of like first time investors will like, when you talk to them about certain properties and like you say about like the $50,000 property and it's like an 18% cash and cash return and like it's a 17% cap rate and their eyes are just like, they're just ready to go.
Yeah, you throw
And
the
it's
numbers out and they're all jazzed up about it, right?
Yeah, it's like if I can get 3 of those,
Yeah.
but then it's like, all right, well, like how much you have in like your, reserve fund or whatever to cover costs of, I mean, they're $50,000 for a reason, and there's things that do need to be done in the near future.
Yeah.
So
3 months later, you get a bill for 20 grand from your property manager, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I'm not paying that.
Yeah, right. So yeah, no, good. I mean, I think to like sum up, it's just real estate should always be a conversation, in terms of like financial advisor mode. That you're in personally to just talking to just any consumer out there, so to speak, any just person, right? Like and kind of boil it down to like, am I willing to take on risk, because these are risky things, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just never going to be like you collect a check and don't have to dish one out.
No investment is an absolute lock.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I guess the thing of it is like over time, right? So like over long term, and hopefully this is never proven wrong, but like, your 401k or your IRA that you're not touching for 30 years, that'll be a lock in terms of like, you're not going to lose money.
Right.
It'll grow. It just may not, it will not grow at the same rate of return, money compounding, as real estate investments will over the same period. So it's not for everybody.
Right.
And I can't fault it, right? I can't fault the person that says, like, look, I got a lot of money tied up in this. It's making me a steady 5% every year, keeps growing. I don't want to tie my money up into something that, yes, it's got, 10% one year, but 5% the next. That just stresses me out. And I got to dish out a check here,
Right.
pay taxes,
It's like an extra responsibility that someone will have to put on their table.
Well,
where,
it's- like you said, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was good. It was good. What did we miss? Anything else you want to cover?
No. I think that's really it.
All right. good little snapshot of investment rate of returns and stuff of that nature. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank
William
you.
Smith here, and thanks for tuning into the Rochester Real Estate Show.